Tonight, President Trump's immigration crackdown underway. 1,500 troops touching down in El Paso as the White House confirms deportation flights have begun. All this as new surveillance video captures the moment ICE agents raided a New Jersey business. How the outraged mayor of that city is responding tonight. Also tonight, Trump in the disaster zones. The president touring hard-hit areas of North Carolina and California on his first trip in office, promising residents he will, quote, overhaul FEMA. The 10th meeting on the tarmac with political rival California Governor Gavin Newsom. Ohtani impersonator. The new audio recordings revealing the interpreter for MLB All-Star Shohei Ohtani pretended to be the baseball player on the phone to wire $200,000 to himself. Chaos in Congo. Rebels from the Rwanda-backed M23 continuing their all-out siege on villages across the country. Thousands forced to flee by boat and foot as rebel forces close in. Target rolls back DEI. The major retailer joining the list of companies pulling back from diversity and inclusion programs and falling in line with Trump's executive order on the issue, what it means for employees and consumers. And rabid bear attack. Video showing the moment a man was knocked to the ground by a black bear and mauled. The warning to residents tonight. Plus, the founder of a cryptocurrency company and his wife kidnapped and held for ransom, where they were found after a 2-day search. Top Story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. Tonight, President Trump's overhaul of U.S. immigration policy on full display. The White House releasing footage of U.S. Marines at the U.S.-Mexico border and posting this photo to social media showing people boarding a U.S. Armed Forces plane with the text, "Deportation flights have begun." The Department of Defense sharing this photo with a look inside those deportation flights. On the other side of the border, Mexico's military setting up makeshift shelters in preparation for an influx of migrants deported or turned away at the U.S. border. All of this as ICE ramps up arrests in cities across the country, like this one in Newark, New Jersey. Surveillance video obtained by WNBC shows the moment ICE agents raided a business and said they arrested 3 undocumented immigrants. NBC senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez spoke to the mayor of Newark about that raid and leads us off tonight.
Tonight, a dramatic escalation of President Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. The first of 1,500 extra troops touching down in El Paso, Texas to support border security. And for the first time, migrants being deported not on chartered flights like before, but on military aircraft. 2 flights landing this morning in Guatemala.
We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get.
After a record 10 million illegal border crossings over the past 4 years, ICE now ramping up roundups of undocumented immigrants, making 538 arrests yesterday across the country, doubling its daily average in September. Cities including San Francisco, Salt Lake City, and Atlanta. In Newark, New Jersey, this surveillance video appears to show ICE agents making arrests. City officials and immigrant advocates say ICE agents raided this local business, arresting 3 undocumented immigrants and briefly detaining an American citizen, a military veteran, while they asked him for documentation.
They were scrambling up delivery ramps. They were banging down bathroom doors to make sure no one was hiding inside.
ICE doesn't call them raids, but targeted enforcement operations, adding agents sometimes encounter U.S. citizens while conducting field work and may request identification.
Do you plan to use city resources to impede ICE?
We're not going to participate in what we think is unlawful.
Newark's Democratic Mayor Ras Baraka telling us late today there were 2 more operations in his city where more than a third of the population was born outside the U.S.
Donald Trump won this election. What would you say to Trump supporters who are watching this and saying, that's what we voted for?
They're wrong. I would say you're wrong. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now.
Meanwhile, according to this internal memo obtained by NBC News, the Trump administration is reversing another Biden border policy, allowing ICE officials to quickly deport migrants who were legally allowed into the country temporarily under the Biden administration. Back in El Paso, Daniel de la Cruz lives just blocks from the border and praises President Trump for keeping his campaign promise on deportations.
America needs to take care of the American people. I'm glad that Trump is in office implementing the law.
And Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from Newark, New Jersey. Gabe, we're hearing more from the Trump administration tonight about how they say they want to ramp up these deportation efforts even further. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, Allison. We just heard today from President Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, who is so involved in this immigration policy. He says that the administration believes that they will have more deportations tomorrow, more after that, more the day after that. So the administration trying to show that it is ramping all of this up and that it wants to partner not just with the military, but as we previously reported, wants to expand its program called the 287G that will give local law enforcement the ability to partner with ICE. Allison?
And Gabe, have we heard anything from the countries who are receiving these deportation flights?
Well, Allison, in the piece you saw that Guatemala received 2 aircraft today. But something else you should know about, in Mexico. Mexico actually denied permission for a U.S. military deportation plane to land in the country. The Mexican embassy has not commented, but earlier this week, Mexico's president said that they did not approve of what she called Trump's unilateral action when it comes to his border policy. Allison.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez in Newark, New Jersey. Thank you. For more on the Trump administration's escalating crackdown, we're joined now by Rose Cuisan-Villazor. She is the director of the Center for Immigrant Justice and a professor of law at Rutgers Law School. Rose, thank you for being with us tonight. Let's start with some of that reporting on the ICE raid that took place in Newark, New Jersey. We have heard that there were some U.S. citizens, at least one U.S. citizen who was detained during that raid, someone who reportedly was a military veteran. Allegedly, this all happened, according to the mayor, without these ICE agents presenting any sort of warrant when they went in. What do you make of this? And when are there circumstances legally where ICE agents would have the legal grounds to detain a U.S. citizen?
That's a really good place to start. So we need to talk about constitutional rights here that apply to everybody. And in this particular case, the Fourth Amendment says that everyone should be entitled to or should be protected against unreasonable search and seizures by the federal government and other state law enforcement. And so in this case, there was no search warrant that was signed by a judge, and that meant that there was a violation here of the Fourth Amendment, which impacted the rights not only of the individual employees who were there, but also the employer, who said that he was completely unaware that this was going to happen.
So talk to us about what the deportation process looks like when done legally. In theory, once you are detained, what happens next? What are rights people need to know about? And how are law enforcement officers supposed to behave?
There's an established case law and a statute that says that if one is going to be deported, removed from the United States, there needs to be a process. And that process requires that that person has to go before a judge to determine whether or not that person is, under the law, deportable or removable. And even if, after a judge orders or decides that that person is going to be removable, there are other ways in which that person is allowed to stay. So in other words, there has to be a rule of law that must be followed, a process that Congress established that needs to be followed. And what I'm seeing right now is just a complete neglect or ignorance of what the law is and what the law should be.
I also want to ask you about some of Gabe's reporting, specifically that the Trump administration is looking to deport migrants who are allowed into this country legally under the Biden administration. Is there any legal precedent to say whether or not that could or couldn't happen?
I'm not aware of that. What Gabe was talking about was this humanitarian parole that allowed people to apply through an app in order to legally enter the United States temporarily until immigration officers and judges can determine whether or not they have a right to stay. Right. So a few days ago, that memo, that practice has been eliminated. And so now it remains to be seen whether the current administration will follow what statutes say about the process of determining whether a person should be allowed in. So we have over 1 million people who followed the law in entering the United States. And isn't that what everyone has been talking about? And still, despite the fact that they followed immigration laws and policies, they are now vulnerable to being removed.
President Trump's border officials, they have promised to prosecute officials who, in their words, try to stand in the way of immigration enforcement activities. What options do state and or local officials, or even places like schools or churches, officials within those realms, what sort of options do they have to push back if they think laws are being violated or possibly human rights are being violated?
Schools, churches, state and local officials can lean in on the law, right? Lean in on the U.S. Constitution principles that protect the ability of individuals, faith-based organizations, communities to protect their private property rights. They can exclude ICE from coming unless there is a judicially signed warrant. All right, of course, there are exigent circumstances that allow law enforcement to enter private property, but absent that, we need to be mindful that we're talking about private property rights. State and local governments have police powers that are protected also by the United States Constitution, by the 10th Amendment. They cannot be commandeered to enforce federal law. That's not their job. Their job is to promote and protect the general welfare of their residents. They cannot be turned into immigration officers.
All right. Rose Cuisan-Villasor, director of the Center for Immigrant Justice, also a law professor at Rutgers Law School. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you so much.
Also tonight, President Trump touring cities and towns hard hit by natural disasters. Trump visiting a North Carolina neighborhood destroyed by Hurricane Helene, and then traveling to communities ravaged by wildfires in Southern California. But during those visits, he blasted FEMA's response and suggested closing down that agency. NBC's Peter Alexander has more.
President Trump today touring damage and hearing from displaced residents in parts of North Carolina ravaged by Hurricane Helene 4 months ago.
I totally feel like that we have been forgotten.
The president, alongside the First Lady, again complaining that FEMA's response has been too slow.
Unfortunately, our government failed you, but it wasn't the Trump government. It was a government run by Biden.
And floating a potentially dramatic move, eliminating FEMA entirely.
I think, frankly, FEMA's not good. FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away.
Instead, proposing the White House send disaster relief directly to states and give governors more control. But a president does not have the power to shut down FEMA and would need Congress to give him the authority to remake or get rid of any agency. FEMA's defenders argue the federal government supports states and has a breadth of expertise and resources to respond that most states do not have. A top Democrat tonight panning the proposal.
I mean, if there's one reason we're one nation under God, it's to deal with disasters. So, no, we shouldn't get rid of it.
Meanwhile, the president just landing in L.A. to visit the wildfire zone there, greeted by Governor Gavin Newsom on the tarmac, after repeatedly attacking California's Democratic leaders over the state's response to the disaster, and hours after detailing a pair of demands before he will offer more federal aid to the state.
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state.
Newsom's office says other states don't require voter ID, and California pumps as much water now as it could under Trump's first-term policies, writing conditioning aid for American citizens is wrong. All of it with a final Senate confirmation vote expected tonight on Pentagon pick Pete Hegseth. Earlier, an NBC News review of records from Hegseth's divorce from his second wife, Samantha, includes a court-ordered agreement precluding either of them from saying anything publicly that would disparage the other. Since her ex-husband's nomination, Samantha has commented publicly about him only once, in response to a request from NBC News for comment on an affidavit by his former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth. Samantha told NBC News, "There was no physical abuse in my marriage."
And Peter joins us now in studio. Peter, in your piece, you said the president cannot shut down FEMA without congressional approval. But are there other avenues he could take here?
It's a good question. A White House official, Ellison, tells me tonight that the president is signing an executive order this evening that will set up a task force to review FEMA and to recommend any changes to the emergency management agency.
We are also hearing tonight the Secretary of State Marco Rubio paused foreign aid grants indefinitely for most of foreign aid. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is following up. The Secretary of State is on an executive order that President Trump signed in his first days in office right now. And in fact, this is according to a cable that was obtained, a State Department cable that was obtained by NBC News. What it's doing basically is ordering an immediate stop for the time being so that they can review it. There are two exceptions right now. Rubio signing a waiver for both Israel and Egypt, but no other countries were mentioned in that cable.
Peter Alexander, thank you. Next, Target rolling back its DEI initiatives, the latest big company to retreat from the programs. Other major companies like Walmart, Meta, and McDonald's also doing the same. The company's decision follows President Donald Trump's executive order ending the government's DEI programs. For more on this announcement, we're joined by NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. All right, Brian, Target announcing these changes in a memo sent to employees today. Do we know exactly what that memo said?
Yeah, and by the way, they did also announce publicly exactly some of these changes that were made, but it was interesting to see that in the internal memo sent to employees that the reason for why they made these changes was described as an evolving external, landscape. So here's exactly what Target announced today. They said that first, they would be ending their 3-year-old program on DEI, and they would also stop reporting to external diversity focus groups like the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. And then lastly, they said that they would end a program focused on carrying products from Black or minority-owned businesses. This was a program that they called a supplier diversity initiative. But, Ellison, this is a remarkable turn for a company that is based in Minneapolis. That is the city where George Floyd was murdered in 2020, and at the time sparked a massive movement among corporate America to take on these DEI initiatives. And now here we are just a few years later with these companies now paring back on that. It kind of speaks to the evolving political landscape with regards to these DEI policies.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not ask is this politics question, because there were conservative groups that took issue with Target in the past because they had a collection of items for Pride Month, right? Did that and those groups play a role in this rollback, or does it seem to be more about the politics and a company trying to mirror President Trump's executive order and the changes that he's enacting within government agencies?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of all of the above, but maybe not in a direct way. It's not like there's necessarily one company that was a shareholder that tried to wrestle Target's arm into making these changes, nor was it the president making a phone call to CEO Brian Cornell telling them to do this. But look, Target is not the only company that has made these types of changes. And I think that what they announced today, yes, it could certainly be, coincidence that this is only a few days after the inauguration of Donald Trump. But we have to remember that the pressure from the DEI standpoint on these companies has been mounting for months. And again, this is not the only company or the latest company to be making these types of changes, but it does speak to the kind of the confluence of both corporate entities facing pressure just from society, but then also who is in the White House as well.
Yeah, tell us about some of those other companies that are also doing this or have in the past. We mentioned off the top Walmart, Meta, and McDonald's. What have they said about their rollbacks?
Yeah, another example would be Harley-Davidson and John Deere. These are companies that have already rolled back these programs even prior to the election, which kind of underscores my earlier point that it's not necessarily just the election or the inauguration of Donald Trump. But I want to point out it's not that all of corporate America is ditching their DEI initiative. I want to remind folks that there are other companies like, for example, Costco. They just held a shareholder vote yesterday where they asked their shareholders to vote on a proposal that was launched by a shareholder group asking them to roll back their DEI initiatives. And that vote was more than 98% against making that rollback to their DEI policies. So in an overwhelming voice, their shareholders saying we want to keep these DEI policies. So it does speak to the fact that there is this kind of push and pull, even in corporate America, over whether or not to keep these types of policies.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs also doubling down on their support for those initiatives. Brian Chung, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Turning overseas now, where the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is holding 5 days after it went into effect. Under the terms of the deal, more hostages are set to be released tomorrow, including for the first time Israeli military personnel. But the ceasefire did not come soon enough to save one family in Gaza hoping to return home. NBC's Raf Sanchez has this look at one of the last children killed in Gaza before the ceasefire. And we do want to warn you, this footage is disturbing.
They're known as the Watchtower Girls, unarmed women soldiers taken from an observation post.
Someone speak English.
18-year-old Liri Albag trying to reason with Hamas gunmen in English.
That's what you mean?
What?
What?
While Nama Levy paraded through Gaza, sweatpants appearing stained with blood. Now Hamas says they're going home, along with Daniela Gilboa and Karina Ariev, in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners, as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continues to hold nearly 1 week in. Palestinian families in Gaza have spent the days since the ceasefire making the most painful of pilgrimages, returning to their homes to see what, if anything, remains. The UN says more than 90% of houses have been damaged or destroyed. Ahmed al-Qudra set off on that journey a little after 9 a.m. Sunday, hoping to return to his house in Han Yunis. But unbeknownst to him, the ceasefire, due to start 8:30 that morning, had been delayed. Hamas had not handed over the names of the hostages it planned to free. And so Israel's airstrikes continued, one of them destroying a police vehicle at this intersection. Israel considers police in Gaza Hamas terrorists, though the Biden administration said targeting them only encourages looting of humanitarian aid and adds to the chaos. The IDF strike here took out several officers, but also killed Ahmed al-Qudra, along with his 16-year-old son Adli and his 6-year-old daughter Sama. She died around 9:30 a.m., 1 hour, 45 minutes before the guns finally went silent. One of, if not the very last child killed in Gaza before the ceasefire. Her mother Hanan kneeling over her small body. She was like a rose, she says, a little girl who imagined her own wedding day and pleaded with her mom for a banana, a rare luxury in wartime when money and food were short. Their father and I would cry at night when we put our heads on the pillow because they wanted to eat, Hanan says. Sama's brother Adil says last week he asked his father for chicken. He borrowed 300 shekels, around $83, to feed his family. A family that struggled even before the war, impoverished during it. Now mourning a small girl who asked for so little and came so close to surviving this pitiless war.
And Raf Sanchez joins us now from Jerusalem. Raf, let's start with the remaining hostages inside of Gaza. The 4 expected to be released on Saturday. They are soldiers, correct? Have your sources said anything about whether or not there are any civilian hostages still alive inside of Gaza?
So, Ellison, that is the question people all across Israel are asking right now. Here's the deal. There are 2 female civilian women still unaccounted for inside of Gaza. One of them is Shiri Bibas. She's the mother of those 2 little boys, Kafir and Ariel Bibas. None of them have been accounted for. Hamas has said that they were killed in an Israeli airstrike early in the war. That's not something Israel has ever confirmed. The other woman still inside Gaza is called Arbel Yehud. She was kidnapped from Nir Oz, and it is very unclear why she is not among the 4 women coming out tomorrow. And you can imagine that for her family, that while they are, of course, celebrating along with the rest of the country the potential release of these 4 soldiers, it is deeply, deeply concerning that there is no news about their daughter. Ellison.
And in terms of Lebanon, Raf, a year of hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel ended with that ceasefire back in November. Israeli forces, they were supposed to withdraw from Lebanon within 60 days, which would have in theory been this weekend. But we're hearing that might not happen. How come?
Yeah, it would have been Sunday, the deadline. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is saying his forces are not going to withdraw in that deadline. And they are saying the reason for that is that the Lebanese army has yet to fulfill its side of the obligation by moving into southern Lebanon in the area adjacent to the Israeli border and taking control there, making sure that Hezbollah has pulled north. Israel is saying until it gets confirmation that the Lebanese military has done that, it will not withdraw its military completely, it says, in order to protect those Israeli towns and villages along the border. Elsa.
Raf Sanchez in Jerusalem, thank you. Still ahead tonight, bird flu cases surging, entire flocks impacted, sending the price of eggs skyrocketing. The concern as the Trump administration implements a communication blackout for federal health agencies. and new evidence in the case against Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. How the baseball star's former employee was able to wire $200,000 to himself. Plus, Spirit Airlines introducing a new dress code. We'll tell you what you can and cannot wear on your next flight. Stay with us. Top Story is just getting started. We're back now with new audio of a fake Shohei Ohtani. In the recording, Ohtani's former interpreter pretends to be the Dodgers superstar to transfer $200,000 to his own account. NBC's Valerie Castro has that audio and the latest on the sentencing that ex-employee is now facing.
Who am I speaking with? Shohei Ohtani.
Despite what the voice on the call says, that was not Los Angeles Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani, according to federal authorities, but Ippei Mitsuhara, his ex-interpreter turned impersonator.
How may I help you? So I tried to log into online banking, and it told me that it's not available to me at this time.
Federal prosecutors say that audio captured Mitsuhara trying to initiate a payment to himself from Ohtani's account, saying it was for a friend. Prosecutors say it was one of 24 calls he made.
It's for $200,000. Thank you. Alrighty. Now, recently we come across a trend of fraud and scams. What is the reason for this transaction? For a car loan.
For reference, this is what Ohtani actually sounds like.
To the fans around the world that support not only me, but Major League Baseball, we thank you and appreciate you.
Mitsuhara is now facing nearly 5 years in prison after pleading guilty last June to fraud for stealing close to $17 million from the three-time MVP in a scheme dating back to 2021.
Will there be any future wires to your friend? Possibly.
Prosecutors say Mitsuhara used the money he stole to cover his growing gambling debt, a figure his attorney says topped $40 million. In a letter to the judge, Mitsuhara asking for mercy and a lesser 18-month sentence, saying he was subject to a grueling work schedule and underpaid, factors he says contributed to his gambling addiction.
Any form of addiction, like a gambling addiction, can qualify as a mental health issue, which could also translate then into a mitigating factor to reduce a potential sentence. But that said, the prosecution also preempted that by saying that a lot of these expenses that he paid for were not even directly gambling related, including, for example, $325,000 on eBay for baseball cards. So that really counteracts his argument that this all came from a gambling addiction.
Excuse us. Mitsuhara's lawyer declined NBC News requests for comment. Now Ohtani speaking directly to fans in his own voice, perhaps a little more often.
I'm so honored to be here.
As he looks to build off last season's World Series success.
Congratulations, Los Angeles. Thank you, fans.
And Valerie joins us now in studio. So, Valerie, you mentioned it's not just this payment, but $17 million roughly that he's stolen. Is that all actually going to be returned, retrieved? How will that work?
So prosecutors are asking for that nearly $17 million to be paid back as part of restitution. He's also being asked to pay back another $1.1 million to the IRS. He also pleaded guilty to tax fraud in this case. But according to court filings, it's unlikely that he'll be able to come up with those sums of money. He is due to be sentenced on February 6th, and we'll see if the judge takes into consideration his letter asking for leniency.
All right, interesting stuff. Valerie Castro, thank you. Now, the latest in the case of the Menendez brothers, convicted in the 1989 murder of their parents. One of their cousins speaking out to NBC News about the possibility of their release. NBC's Stephanie Gosk has that interview.
When two brothers shot their parents in a Beverly Hills home in 1989, family tragedy became public fascination, and it still is.
To have the public spectacle for decade after decade has been very difficult.
Anna Maria Baralt is the Menendez brothers' first cousin.
We played in a lot of pools, we ran around. I mean, they were full of life.
Sentenced to life without parole, Baralt never thought her cousins would be released. Until now.
We're in constant contact. Are they hopeful? I think that they are cautiously hopeful.
A resentencing hearing set for next week has been pushed to March, but it's still happening. Set in motion by LA's previous district attorney, George Gascon, after recent TV shows drew new attention to Jose Menendez's alleged abuse of his sons.
If you look at Lyle and Eric as people, not just a blanket life without parole sentence, I think that you are forced to confront their incredible rehabilitation.
But George Gascon has been replaced with a new DA who says he's not interested in watching the shows.
We will look at each case separately, which is the way they actually should be handled. We'll look at each victim separately.
The decision to pursue resentencing now rests in his hands.
Didn't it seem like the new DA took a step back from where Gascon was?
It did feel like in his interviews he was saying that. However, I'm going to take him at his word when he says that he's doing the hard work.
Hoping, she says, that he looks not only at what her cousins did, but who they have become. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Coming up, rabid bear attack. Video capturing the moment a black bear infected with rabies knocks a man to the ground and then mauls him. The latest on his condition tonight. Stay with us. We're back now with Top Stories news feed. Rock musician Marilyn Manson will not be charged after a years-long investigation into sexual assault allegations against him. Los Angeles prosecutors saying the allegations against the 56-year-old are too old and lack evidence to raise charges. The 4-year investigation looked into incidents that took place between 2009 and 2011 after multiple women accused the singer of abuse, including actress Evan Rachel Woods. Manson has not replied to an NBC News request for comment. Officials confirming that a bear that attacked a man in Pennsylvania on Sunday has rabies. Surveillance footage showing the bear pouncing on the man and pulling him to the ground. The incident happening on a trail near the Pocono Mountains. A neighbor fatally shot that bear and its body was taken for testing. The victim survived and is expected to make a full recovery. 17 people aboard a Canadian freighter finding themselves in a frosty standstill on Lake Erie. The vessel became trapped in ice on Wednesday after sub-zero temperatures swept the shoreline near Buffalo, New York. An ice cutter from the U.S. Coast Guard working to free the vessel this afternoon. Officials saying the captain and crew are safe. And passengers on Spirit Airlines might need to rethink their fashion choices the next time they fly. The company saying passengers that are barefoot, have offensive tattoos, or are not adequately covered may be required to leave the aircraft. But Spirit is not the only airline updating its contract of carriage. United Airlines also revising their policy this week to say barefoot and improperly clothed passengers are not welcome on their flights either. Next tonight, bird flu surging, infecting almost 70 people while hitting poultry farms hard and sending egg prices soaring. The spike comes as the Trump administration cuts off public communication by the CDC and other federal health agencies. NBC's Maggie Vespa has this one.
Tonight, a communications blackout for America's top public health agencies, with President Trump's acting HHS secretary instructing them to refrain from publicly issuing any document until it has been reviewed and approved by a presidential appointee. This as vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. awaits confirmation as HHS secretary. The pause set to expire February 1st, with HHS saying they'll consider exceptions for mission-critical announcements on a case-by-case basis. But does America's bird flu crisis qualify? With new cases reported this month in at least 20 states, including at this New York duck farm, where nearly 100,000 birds are set to be euthanized. The virus infecting 67 people in the last year, killing one. Public health experts warn federal agencies can't go silent.
You fear even a brief or temporary pause could have consequences amid this outbreak.
Yes, I do, because there are cases that are accumulating now. There was just guidance updates a couple of days before the Biden administration left office.
Bird flu jumping to other species, including dairy cows. The outgoing Biden administration mandating testing of America's milk supply.
There's absolutely no eggs whatsoever.
This as egg shortages mount and prices soar, up 65% in the last year. Indiana egg farmer Sam Krause has spent millions installing shower and truck washing stations.
We want, as farmers, just to focus on
taking good care of our flocks. And then when we're living with this threat.
Chicago area wildlife officials warning the public to avoid sick or dead birds after euthanizing dozens in recent months.
This disease has almost 100% mortality rate in the animals that we are seeing. And so really our options are euthanize what we can because human health is going to be the utmost priority.
Maggie Vespa, NBC News.
Now to top stories. Global Watch. A French cryptocurrency founder and his wife freed after they were kidnapped and held hostage for at least 2 days, according to French prosecutors. Police say the co-founder of the top French crypto company Ledger, David Blonde, and his wife were abducted from their home in central France. Police allegedly found Blonde 30 miles from his home and his wife some 80 miles away. Blonde suffered serious injuries to his hand. At least 10 people were arrested, but so far French police say the motive is unclear. And Ukraine says it has hit a Russian oil refinery in one of their largest drone attacks in the war with Russia. Video shows people running for their lives as a massive fireball erupts from the facility in Ryazan. That's about 120 miles southeast of Moscow. Ukraine says it also hit a weapons depot near the border. Russia claims it shot down more than 120 Ukrainian drones in 13 regions. So far, no deaths or injuries reported. And opposition leaders in Belarus denouncing this weekend's election as a sham. With no real challenges, authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko is expected to extend his 30-year rule. Lukashenko, who has been called Europe's last dictator, moving the election up from August to January, deterring protests in cold weather. His last election victory, which the European Union does not recognize as legitimate, triggered months of protests and thousands of arrests. Staying overseas into the worsening rebel conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Insurgents known as M23 encroaching on the major city of Goma as they capture other nearby towns and force a major refugee crisis. That city borders Rwanda, who the U.S. and the UN say is supporting M23 in the fight. NBC's chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has the details.
As armed rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo close in on Goma, a critical city in the east that was once a safe haven. The main hospital there already overwhelmed with the wounded, many of them civilians. This mother says she was carrying her baby when a bomb struck her group as they fled, adding, "Everyone around me was dead, crushed like meat." She and thousands of others across the Central African nation desperate to escape the escalating violence between the Congolese military and the M23 rebel group, which the US and the United Nations say is backed by Rwanda, a claim it denies.
Rwanda's motives are complex and difficult to parse. They've deployed many troops, they've deployed surface-to-air missiles, they've deployed armored vehicles.
The roughly 8,000 M23 rebel fighters have gained ground in recent weeks, earlier this month seizing the towns of Sake and Minova, according to the UN. A man claiming to be an M23 rebel calling on the people there to join their cause, telling them their president had abandoned them in this video posted on social media. And now they're closing in on Goma, a city of 2 million right on the Rwandan border. Tonight, the Congolese army says one of its military governors was killed by the rebels just miles outside the city. Refugees there, who already fled once, fear they are running out of options. "I don't know where I am going," this man, fleeing a refugee camp outside of Goma, says. "The bombs are following us as we go." The DRC and Rwanda have been in conflict for nearly 3 decades, dating back to the Rwandan genocide. The latest escalation drawing major concern from international human rights groups.
Some 400,000 people have been displaced in North and South Kivu since the beginning of this year alone. Any such attack on Goma risks catastrophic impacts on hundreds of thousands of civilians.
The US State Department, under the Biden administration, called on Rwanda to, quote, immediately withdraw all Rwandan Defense Force personnel from the Congo and remove its surface-to-air missile systems.
The Congo is a critical country for the Trump administration. It produces the largest amount of copper in all of Africa. It's the largest producer of cobalt, which you need for electric vehicle batteries in the world. So one thing to see is whether that could lead the Trump administration actually to side with the Congo in this and put pressure on Rwanda.
Keir Simmons, NBC News.
And we will be right back. We're back now with some special diplomacy out of Washington. The National Zoo welcoming 2 new pandas to D.C., and they are already making incredibly great first impressions. Here's Tom Costello.
While new occupants have moved into the nation's capital, it's the other new residents just up the street who have complete bipartisan support. They're snow surfing, somersaults, and tree climbing, stealing hearts at the Smithsonian National Zoo. On loan from China, 3-year-olds Bao Li and Qing Bao today made their official public debut.
We're the only place on the planet where people can see giant pandas for free.
Lisa Barhan and 5-year-old Jaden came from Cleveland wading in 18-degree cold at 5:30 a.m.
They've always been special. I've loved them since I was a kid.
There is something special about watching a giant panda chomp down on bamboo on a cold day in January. It's just kind of calming.
I think pandemonium is going to break out right here at the zoo.
Pandas first came to Washington in 1972, part of a diplomatic and global conservation program that was put on pause in 2023 as U.S.-Chinese relations soured. Now Bao Li and Qing Bao are finding their bearings in their new home.
Our shared love for pandas has deepened my conviction that China and the United States have much more in common than what divides us.
You want to play? There you go.
They'll be here for 10 years. 2 more pandas are at the San Diego Zoo as pandiplomacy returns. Tom Costello, NBC News at the National Zoo.
Thanks so much for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Ellison Barber in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.